Morning all. Another day in paradise. Another early morning start as usual for me. Well, that's what I do. Yeah. Well, yesterday I was doing my volunteer work as per usual. The lighting's not very good from this angle, is it? That's better. I really should prepare for these things more, but I'm a bit of a spontaneous kind of guy. Sometimes destructively spontaneous. That's a good phrase. Must remember that one. Ham on. I wanted to talk about the subject of mental health services in the UK. I have no idea the condition of mental health services abroad, in the US or Russia, where apparently a small percentage of my subscribers come from. Hi guys and girls, whoever and whatever you may be. It's been in a state of decay for many, many years. I mean, my partner, as some of you may know, is a psychiatric nurse who now works privately, but she did, I think, approximately a decade for the NHS. And the state of mental health services in Norfolk and Suffolk is not good. Never has been. There's been so many inquiries and investigations. You know, people who've somehow managed to trigger warning, commit suicide in their cells. Not cells, rooms, sorry. I'm over 50, occasionally I say very politically incorrect things. I always get pulled up on them by my partner. No, I mean, because this is the problem with the gigantic drunken man baby downstairs. Although I don't think he's ever sought help because he's always been told that he's all right. But yesterday, to start this off, talking about my own mental health and the impact it's having on and my partner's mental health. This prick. We went on a bender last night, apparently. His partner locked him out of the flat and he was hammering on the door and swearing and getting aggressive, which my partner recorded. I think she recorded about 20 minutes, half an hour of this behaviour, which is being saved up for future reference. This morning, because apparently he was bored and drunk because their TV wasn't working. How pathetic. Read a book, play a card game. No imagination, a very dull-witted, pointless little waste of oxygen. And basically, Morrison's telecom van arrived in the morning. I think it was about 9 o'clock. No, 8 o'clock, actually. Yeah, get your timeline straight, Howard. And, well, he was, I think, still drunk. Or something else was going on. Maybe he'd got hold of some drugs of some description, because I wouldn't put it past him. He's an addict. I understand that. But I don't think I've ever behaved that atrociously in 25 years. Which is a subject I will be touching on again when I get round to it in my random way. You know, the worst of my past. But anyway, continuing with current events. This poor delivery driver, maintenance man, was having to put up with this sneering, whiny voice, probably moaning about his upstairs neighbours and how they victimise him. But I should have used my snap judgment on Steve, because I was correct in hindsight of what I thought of him. Nasty little pockmark-faced, bulbous red-nosed, dark beady-eyed, pot-bellied little shit with a haircut that possibly he's had since school. And he must be mid-40s, possibly older. Never had to grow up, never had to take responsibility for his own actions. Always been bailed out by. This is just my snap judgment. But I've spoken to his mother, the first incident that the police were brought in on. Never again. And she sounds like exactly the kind of doting middle-class mother. I presume he may well be an only child. Or possibly he had siblings and they've passed away or don't talk to him. Wouldn't blame them. And yeah, he's never had to take responsibility for his own actions. Whereas 25 years ago, it took me a while, but I had to take responsibility for what I had done. Eventually, it took me a while. I have to admit that. Because I wasn't used to doing that either. But I learned a harsh lesson. It's not my job to teach him. Don't know him from Adam, don't want to know him. Anyway. Tangent. Basically, this delivery technician, who by the way was of African descent, and I get the opinion Steve might well be a little bit racist as well. I would imagine I'm correct on that. He just looks the type, and as he's measuring up to every other single judgment I thought of him, I think we'll go with that one too. Was whining at him. And then the most pathetic thing I heard was obviously the technician got the telly working and it came on, and all of a sudden this prat, UK slang term for Americans and Russians, it basically means a knobhead, a bell end, that's a good one, an idiot, a debil. It's a common Eastern European word that basically means an idiot. Correct me if I'm wrong. Sat there clapping like a 4-year-old, shouting and cheering at the top of his voice. At 8:30 in the morning. I don't know if his partner was hiding in the bedroom, or was it maybe she's got herself a job. She was trying when I last spoke to her before the police incident, because I refused to give either of them the time of day. Not my business, is it? And I went to Chip after witnessing this display of huge drunken man-baby shameful behaviour. Michelle had, I think, I just roused her. My partner isn't like me. Where I'm a night owl and a day owl. She is a night owl, most definitely. I doubt she'll surface before I head off to see my mother in Needham Market today. Oh. Oh. God. Oh, I yawned. Bloody hell. Well, there you go. Fell asleep on the sofa last night, so I have actually been asleep. And I had another hour's doze in bed before I decided to get my arse up. I think it's nearly 5. Oh, well. So, I'm crafting, doing my business, you know. Well, I'm trying to find something randomly. Very pretty scabbard for my sex. I got it from Circland. It's an old reenactment phrase we often used to use. Anything slightly unusual that doesn't quite fit with the period, we'd kind of say that on my trip to Byzantium, I bought it from a market stall and it had been imported from Circland or China. It had come up the Silk Road. It's a nice excuse for anything that doesn't quite fit. You know. We used to say that about mobile phones as well. And eventually, I speak to Michelle in the afternoon to ask her if she fancies popping down for a couple of hours if she's going into town. Because it's a rainy day and she loves walking in the rain. I prefer the sun, but I don't mind the rain. And she was like, I'll meet you in the Brewers Arms, that's my local pub, about 4:30. And I was like, okay. I meet up with her and he's been kicking off intermittently all day. Shouting at his partner, slamming things around, behaving like a huge spoilt man baby. I keep repeating that phrase, but that helps me deal with him, thinking of him as a pathetic little nappy-wearing prat who's no threat to anyone but himself, helps me to deal with him. Because he's tiny brained and tiny penised and probably tiny in stature and just a very small, petty little man. And when you realise and visualise what people actually are who are trying to provoke you, quite often it's easier not to be provoked. This is something that took me a very long time to learn. And we sat in the Brewers feeling like refugees from our own home. I popped home to deliver my travel luggage, as it were. Book recommendation for historians. Oh, it's backward, but this is Anthony Beevor is the author, and it's Stalingrad. It's basically full of eyewitness accounts, writings, and background and history of the from the start of Operation Barbarossa in World War II, Hitler's ill-fated campaign against. Oh, that'll get me demonetised, won't it? I mentioned the H word. Yeah, it does bear a certain similarity to my downstairs neighbour. He lives in a fantasy land and tells loads of lies and makes shit up as well. Very good book. Antony Beevor's Stalingrad. I can recommend it. Yeah. And eventually, because it was football, Ipswich played and beat Bristol City, I think it was. Correct me if I'm wrong, locals. And it was getting kind of crowded. We'd sat in front of, but it was above, so people could see the telly. And it felt like people were staring at us, and I think it was making Michelle slightly uncomfortable. So I phoned the Woolpack, which is the other side of the park. And they said no special events on. And we've been there for a meal before, and it's a very nice, relaxing place. Let's put the beer can end back on my walking stick. It's getting worn through a bit, but there's always plenty of beer cans. People drop them in the street. And we went over there. And just totally wound down. It's a lovely place. Just wind down. It's peaceful. There are board games. We took our own. I had don't know where it's gone. I was in Michelle's bag. Doomlings, the little card game that I can also recommend highly. You know, it's a very good, seemingly simple to learn but hard to master card game where you evolve your little species from the dawn of life and give them traits. The world has various events and eventually disasters. And when 3 of them, because I've been playing it wrong, when you get 3 disasters, then it's the end of the world. Trouble always comes in threes, doesn't it? I'm really going off on some tangents here, but basically most of my videos like this are one huge tangent. Because staying on subject has never been a thing. Hi, ADHD, autism. Yeah. And we wound down, and by the time we got back here, all was quiet. So perhaps he's gone through that stage of his cycle, but up with this shit we will not put for much longer. It's difficult being patient, but the difference is between someone like myself and someone like Twat Boy downstairs is I doubt he's ever had proper contact with mental health services because he probably thinks he's fine. I used to be like that 25, 30 years ago. And his mum keeps telling him he's fine as well, and his partner, just half the time, probably is too busy self-absorbed in her own addiction troubles. It's sad and pathetic, really. But it's not our problem. We deserve to be able to feel relaxed and comfortable in our own living space. And he's interfering with that. There are some grey area things I'm considering. I will not go into details. Grey area. So nothing that perhaps wouldn't meet the tacit approval of law enforcement. I think they'd probably go, I've known quite a few coppers in my time. And service personnel, you know, for armed forces and stuff. A lot of them know there are ways and means of doing things that, whereas frowned upon within the letter of the law, they follow the spirit of the law. Oh, Karina Share, my boss at Rage Breed UK. Do feel free to like and subscribe to her channel. She put up an interesting post earlier on. Or maybe last night, I don't know, I forgot to check the timestamp. Basically, if you were a superhero what would your superpower be, and your name. And relevant to my current situation, I chose to be able to give individuals, exactly what they deserve. The Karmic Avenger. You know, a character who would insinuate themselves into the lives of a person, because this would be a power that only works on individuals one at a time, and reads their desires, wants and needs, and engineers things so they get exactly what they deserve. Be it a lying politician who's having an affair, several probably, and has no principles whatsoever, engineering his downfall, or engineering, I don't know, a homeless person with a huge amount of guitar talent, engineering the exposure they need to get them off the streets and make sure they meet the right people who will not take advantage of them, but then it is up to them. The Karmic Avenger merely steers events in a direction to give you the chance to have your full potential, or the chance for your full downfall. I really like the idea of that. That's kind of why I'm trademarking Karmic Avenger if it hadn't already been trademarked. You heard it here first. No, and mental health services. I'll call her my adopted daughter, who's going through a lot of mental health issues at the moment. I try and help out whenever I can on Facebook, because she goes out even less than my partner. She very much isolates herself, I think, but she's got a boyfriend who supports her. He's a very good bloke. Young man. And she's struggling with getting any form of help or diagnosis. And, you know, it was the same 30 years ago. It's even worse now with mental health services. I mean, a week and a half, nearly a fortnight ago now, I think, I was supposed to have my first appointment for diagnosis on ADHD, autism. Excuse me. Oh, still a bit snotty. Possibly even bipolar. It's an outside. And definitely PTSD. And it was cancelled. Ever since then, I've been occasionally visiting every street surgery, where they're very good and very efficient, it has to be said, because I've not had details on the rebooking at all. So I keep pushing them, and I keep getting nothing back. It's a struggle. It's no wonder so many people just give up. I mean, yeah, if we had the money, I'd go private, but really, there are too many other things that need paying for, too many other investments in my partner and I's future, that is an unnecessary expense as far as I'm concerned, because all I want is diagnosis to help move forward with various things. I occasionally have hiccups when it comes to managing my wide array of symptoms and my temperament. I admit it. Who doesn't? But yeah. It's going to be mirror writing. Yeah, that's what I do. I drink coffee and I know things. Come about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's beer or wine, but most of the day it's tea and coffee. I've developed a liking for builder's tea again. Yorkshire tea, 2 sugars, milk. I love Yorkshire tea. I do. Aye. That is a regional accent for my foreign viewers from the UK. We have many of them. In the US, you tend to have state accents and it doesn't change for miles. Here, you could travel 30 or 40 miles and you'll encounter at least 2 variations of regional dialects. Must be very confusing. Well, I mean, my experience with mental health services 30 years ago during my big crisis was the following. The screw up I was seeing at the time, and I was a screw up myself at the time, was into self-harm big time. Trigger warning. Sorry. And I basically one time got into a very fierce argument with her. We did border on physical aggression with each other when we were drinking together at times when push came to shove. We're as bad as each other, to be honest. And basically I ended up stealing the implement she was using and cutting myself with it. So how does that feel to you, seeing me do that? Now you know how I feel. Oh, shiny nose. And then it became an addiction because the adrenaline and endorphin boost from doing that I became addicted to. And within 2 or 3 weeks, I booked a doctor's appointment in Colchester, at whatever was my local surgery in the Hythe area of Colchester. And I visibly demonstrated to the doctor by near enough stripping down to my underwear in the office, look at my body. Are you telling me I do not need help when I'm doing this to myself? I had cuts on my arms and legs, burn marks on my chest, I think. And he just looked at me like I was an alien from another planet. Southeast Asian, possibly South Asian doctor, who obviously had no experience of mental health, looking back at it. So yeah, this was before my meltdown. I tried to get help, I got nowhere. I mean, I had no idea how to deal with mental health services at that point in my life. I presumed, you went along, they went, right, we can do this, that and the other, and then you got cured, I don't know. Now I know a lot different, obviously, but... So yeah, and within 2 or 3 weeks I had the full-on explosion that I talked about in my last video. Because no one got back to me, no one helped me. Friends tried to support me, but it was too much for them to handle, and that's understandable. There are other avenues these days. There are voluntary organisations and charities that can help with mental health crises. There's the NHS mental health crisis line, which overall I've had a positive experience, apart from one very grumpy, shitty nurse sometime before Christmas, who left me feeling even worse than when I'd phoned, but she was the exception. I wish I'd remembered her name and number, as it were, and reported her. She was, even my partner, when I explained the things she'd said to me, was like, really? And she's been a psychiatric nurse for 15 years, I think. So yeah, that was fun. But yeah, but these charity organisations shouldn't have to exist, because our flipping government should be paying for this. Keeping people healthy and happy in body and mind makes them more productive. Why do they not seem to see this? I do not get it. It flabbergasts me. Another English word, look it up. It's a good word. It's like, the word buffoon is underused. Another English word meaning idiot, useless, ineffectual. Bit like our current Prime Minister in this country. At least he's not Boris Johnson. I still have this vision because I'll end this on a comedy note, I think. Dark comedy. Current crisis in the war in the Ukraine. Apparently a high-ranking military general was quoted as saying that if Russia does declare war, we may have to bring back conscription. In fact, he insists on it. And Boris was quoted as saying, well, he'd join up immediately. I bet the squaddies were having a good joke about that. That's British slang for armed forces personnel, army specifically. Well, I think it covers general, Forgive me if I'm wrong, anybody who's in the armed forces. Never have been. But I'd like to think I know enough to fit in. And yeah, so Boris, in a column he writes for a newspaper. Twat. Basically, I'd join up straight away. I'm thinking, I'm sure it would do this country's morale a great deal of good if they strapped him to one of those drones, with an explosive warhead. Maybe strapped him there with, him holding two Union Jack flags and you go, hello, launched him at the Russian front lines at a tank. I mean, with the weight of his blubber alone, he could probably smash Russian armour, because let's face it, from what I've read, a lot of these Russian tanks are not what they cracked up to be anyway. And then the splash effect would infect that part of the Russian army with bullshit disease. And they'd be too busy lying and cheating and stealing and backstabbing each other to actually get any fighting done. And boom, the Ukraine wins. Yes. Anyway, thank you for listening. I'll keep this down to about 33 minutes this morning because I've got a bit of gaming to do and then I've got to get ready and go see my mother. So, yeah. Take care, people, and remember, there are avenues to get mental health help. I'm not going to talk about them here, but do your research. If you're struggling with your mental health, find places that suit you, charities, go private if need be, if you've got the money, because your mental health is as important as your physical health. Too many people neglect it. Get it sorted before the shit hits the fan. Okay? Peace.